ever heard of the phrase wounded healers? Well, I feel like that is often what is happening inside the church in Christianity. And I think that is, honestly, I think it's fairly normal. And so I wanted to have a conversation about what it really looks like to heal while serving. So welcome back to another episode of the You, Me, and Jesus podcast, where we talk about all things you, me, and Jesus, including serving at church, dealing with things in our personal lives, and trying to figure out how to navigate our lives while also serving people, serving God, and all the things. And I wanted to have this conversation because I feel like that all of us have some level of brokenness. And sometimes we feel like we have to be perfect in order to be able to be helpful to people. But also sometimes I feel like we are extremely wounded and we should have a time where we are sitting down and we're not doing anything. We just want to have like a brief conversation about this. So obviously I've been in church pretty much my entire life. I have been in church. And I have experienced people who are extremely gentle, extremely caring, very empathetic, and all the things. And I've experienced people who are just mad at the world. And they don't even know that they are mad at the world. And I've experienced how experiencing those different people has impacted me. And I've also seen how other people experiencing the two different types of people, how it has impacted them. Now, I guess it reminds me of a parent, right? So our parents are doing their best, obviously, and they are navigating this world along with everybody else. And sometimes our parents have been wounded by the world, have been wounded by their parents, so on and so on and so on. And when our parents are trying to parent us, sometimes they are so wounded that they are bleeding all over us and they don't even know it. Or other times our parents have gone through a journey of healing and all that, and they're able to bring a better version of themselves into the relationship. And then sometimes our parents go through the healing journey later in life, and they're able to bring themselves to us in a more healed version or whatever, you know? And when I think about the parents that are still healing, oftentimes kids deal with these like traumatic childhoods, you know, and they're like, so then now they're in their adult years having to deal with all their childhood wounds. And so I think the same thing happens inside the church. I think that people have a relationship with God, they love God, and they have a desire to help, a desire to serve. And people begin to show up. So they don't just show up as in like just their physical selves, but who they are, how they believe, what is happening with them actually begins to show up. I think about my own self. So I, of course, went through divorce 10 years ago, and I'm a much better version of myself today than I was 5 years ago and then 10 years ago. But I served pretty much as I could. And there were times where people would ask me advice about relationships and things of that nature and all that. And I would have these moments where I had the battle of, is this me, what I'm trying to help them with in terms of like my healed self, or is this my wounded self that's trying to give this person an opinion, you know? And I found myself sometimes saying things I probably should not say in a way that I should not say them because of that. I also found myself being skeptical of everybody because of being wounded, you know, and having to realize that like, hey, there's something actually happening with you that you may or may not know is happening, and you got to go through a little journey so you can be better, you know. And then not to mention, you know, my gift of prophecy started to like manifest itself. But there was this part of me that was just very critical, right? Just in general, for whatever reason. And when I would go to prophesy to people, I would be extremely critical, and it wasn't until I started realizing that I was wounded, really, really, really wounded, and that I needed to go through a healing journey in order to be able to see people through God's eyes versus my own eyes, that I could show up in that better way. So when I think about us coming to church and wanting to serve at church, I don't think anybody comes to church perfect. It's just not why we're here on earth. We need Jesus. That's why, we're all imperfect. And so I don't think anybody comes 100% best version of themselves. But I do think that one of the areas where we are not doing enough is the work on ourselves before we are doing the healing work to other people, for other people. Because people are already coming into the church wounded. They're already coming into the church dealing with what they're dealing with. And then if we bring all of our complexities in with that, it's a double whammy for a person, I remember when I was so broken from divorce and I just didn't have any joy, any whatever. And I came into an environment that was so loving, so kind, so joyful. And they just were just so intent on loving on me and encouraging me. It was so annoying. It was so annoying for me. But eventually I broke, and I realized, I was hardened and I needed love, but it was because these people had learned what they had learned. They had made a decision about growing and healing themselves and then bringing that version of them into church so that they could give it to other people. And so when I think about healing while serving, I think that all of us are on a journey of healing while we're serving. But I really, really, really feel like if you want to serve people in church, on the pulpit, in whatever, you have got to go on a journey of healing. Because if you bring you and all of your complexities, all of your baggage and whatever, we all got it. If you bring all of that in without any tools, without any ability to see through God's eyes, hear with God's ears, then you're going to bring so much into a space that doesn't need to be there, right? So like I just started going to a new church here in Houston, and here's what I was used to going to, and here's how this church is. And as I was being there, I found myself being stretched, being like annoyed by a lot of different things with the church. And there was a part of me that still was enjoying the church, but I was just like, I had to fight within myself being there, of being like, hey, this church is not going to change. Either you're going to understand what they're doing here or why this is happening, or just accept how this part of the church is that you don't enjoy, or you're going to find somewhere else to go, And the more that I just kept saying, hey, listen, there's a reason why you feel called here. There's a reason why you feel called here. And then just talking to myself and like talking to God while I'm talking to myself, then I started to be able to see a little bit clearer. I'm not serving there right now. But there was an opportunity a Sunday ago where it was like prophetic training, and I went. And I realized, I was like, oh, this is brand new. I've done a lot of years of like learning, and this was a very brand new class. And so they wanted us to prophesy over people. And I remember when they said it was time to prophesy, I knew that the girl next to me was probably freaking out. It was her first time, but I had done it for many years. So I just turned to her and said, hey, this is a little bit unfair. I've been doing this a long time. You're okay. If you don't get it right, I don't care. I just want you to try. Okay. And she was like, oh. But that was the healed version of me that could say, it's okay, it's fine. If you get it wrong, I don't care. It's all good. Because 10 years ago, I would have been like, you got it wrong. So then I was able to prophesy to her. She said, prophesy to me. It's fine. No big deal. You know what I mean? It was no big deal. But that was a healed side of me, And so now I'm just allowing myself to slowly just walk through and go, okay, there's going to be moments where I'm like, or whatever. And I'm just allowing myself to just I'm just allowing myself to just take my time. And when I hit up against something, I'm like, okay, God, what are you saying here? What do you want me to know about this here? And you really just taking my time as I navigate being at this new church. And then I'll take my time when it's time to serve. Whenever I start to serve, and I'll have to go, okay, one step at a time, and whatever. Like when you come under a ministry, you got to figure out what do they do, how they do what they do, and you got to submit to how it is they do what they do. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to, whatever, I may rub up against something there, and they'll be like, okay, like, all right, it's gonna be okay. You can navigate this. You can do this. And so I just wanted to share that, like, if it's your desire to serve, especially in church, you've got to go on this healing journey, or you're going to show up bleeding all over people. And you don't want to do that. You don't have to be perfect, but if you are just bleeding all over the place, then you're not good for yourself, and you're definitely not good for the people, and you're not good for the church, So this is a really quick episode, but I wanted to just share this, that it's really important that we allow ourselves to go through healing, therapy, and deliverance, so that way we have the best version of ourselves showing up, so that we can help other people to do the same.